and we will, of course, welcome everyone. It feels like it's been a while. It's good to be back together. Citizen comments. All right, moving on to the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from July 30th and August 6th.
All right, motion by John Belanca.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Alfonso. Any discussion on the minutes? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, got that done. Wanda, it's been a while since we've been together.
It has. Oh my gosh. And so I was going through getting this ready for you guys, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that happened. So I'm just going to give you highlights, if that's all right. Okay, so our financial policies that this group was approved by council. Council spent a lot of time talking about street improvements, in particular signage and problems on Lone Oak. And the result, we made some changes, but we did not do any of the no parking. So, but in the future, what should happen is once we have a capital improvement plan in place, before we redo any street, we should look at, are there any other issues with the street to incorporate all of that in there, so it kind of makes sense. We have a new engineering firm. It's Freeland and Turk. We've kind of revised the citizen portal. It's the mobile 311. So if you have an issue that's not urgent, that's kind of, and you want the city to respond, that's a good way to do it, because then it will be logged and it can be tracked. And so if we have a lot of issues about the same thing, then the city can look at the overall issue. We also approved the task for finance, not the finance committee, but the finance department to go for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. And that really is it's a 3-year process. And it's really on how we present the budget to our citizens to make sure that we are transparent. We do a lot of that now. And in fact, Sylvia and the mayor actually moved more in that direction with their budget documents this year. So we're well on our way. And so hopefully we will get that award. We're currently negotiating a new contract with FSC. And the main thing there is that we ended up using some general funds. And so the council is going to be more closely monitoring that. And that would be a very good thing for this budget and finance committee to weigh in at some point once we get some of those receipts, to make sure that, they're spending money on the way we thought they would be spending money. So
hold it right there.
Okay.
You want us to then put that on a future agenda?
Not yet. When it comes up, we haven't done the contract yet, but it should go on a future agenda at some point, particularly when we look at the budget again for next year. If they are complying with hot funds requirements, and if they are complying with our request for how they spend the money.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yes. So the admin department has moved to the Public Works building. So there was room in the Public Works building. It's a beautiful building. And so they have moved there. So if you go looking for them, you might have to go there. There was a presentation on the homestead properties. homestead property, which is the property behind La Madeleine and docks. And that's got some deed restrictions on that property on what can be done with it. But we're looking at turning it into a little more of a parkland. We're looking at the feasibility. Does it make sense to make this land, beautify this land, make some parkland improvements like a natural amphitheater types of things? And so we have right now, the council approved some money to go and look at and do an environmental study and then do a legal study to make sure that some of the conceptual things that could happen there can actually happen there. The council has been working with the marketing firm. We've had several meetings with them. We are also in process of hiring a new public works director. We had interviews, and council has a meeting tomorrow to see if they approve one of the candidates. And the one thing that we also did in the budget process is that we approved the subsidies to utilities to go ahead and occur. Now, I know the Budget and Finance Committee at the beginning of COVID said, let's not do any of that. But we ended up in the budget process to move that over. And this is why I voted for that, is because the general fund has money for the reserve plus a lot of extra money. So it has a lot of money in the general fund. And I think it's just a better place for that subsidy money to be in the utility fund. So that was moved over there. And now we also have a new city dashboard of city properties. So if you go on the website, you can go scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there's a link to all city-owned property. And then that will take you to the Public Works page. And in the right corner, you'll see there you go. I think you're getting it. And you'll see a link, and then you can see all the city-owned property and all the information about it. So Carolyn and staff has put that together. I think they've done a really outstanding job. So you get a map, plus you get to click on anything, and then you can see how big the property is, some of the history, any deed restrictions, and that type of information. So we have been quite busy. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Are there any, Jerry? You're muted.
I can't hear you.
You're muted. You're
I
muted.
apologize. I apologize.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. May we get a digital copy of that report? I thought it was an excellent liaison report, and I'd like a copy of it.
Well, it's my notes, but I could type it all up.
Oh, just
Yes.
take a picture of it. Just
You will not be able to read
a
my writing,
JPEG.
but I can type it up. I promise you, you won't. My husband can't read my grocery list at all, so I'll just tell you that. But I'll give you a copy. Yes, Mark.
I think it's just related to your report, but it's a question for Sylvia. I'm kind of curious, Sylvia, what is the footprint or utilization of the public works and building right now as far as like available offices and, with the new public works director coming on, is it still that you all are going to stay there for the time being?
No, once the public works director comes on board, all of the offices will be fully utilized.
Okay, so we'll be out of space in the public works, but we'll still have the obviously city hall for purposes if there's a need to.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's there's some feasibility things for city hall that this committee and the planning and environmental committee will have to look at in terms of budgetary impacts, and then any legal constraints, and really what the plan is for not just the city hall building, but all of that complex. You have the pond and all of the green space all around it. It doesn't make any sense that we kind of just look at things in individual aspects.
Okay, thanks.
Regine and I are still at City Hall, though.
Oh, I thought that was part of the transition that you guys were going to be moving over to Public Works.
No, she's since she's retiring, Regina's decided she's not moving. And so I'm keeping her company, and we like to yell across the hall without anybody there. And we have much better communication yelling at each other up and down the hall.
But your plan is to move over there
Yes.
eventually?
Yes, I will be moving to Katie's old office.
Okay.
Sure.
Any other question? Alfonso, are you?
Alfonso?
Yeah, Wanda, it wasn't clear. What do you say? Can you repeat? You say that utilities, the subsidies from utilities, they were moved to general fund because it has a lot of money. This is
Just the opposite. Just the opposite. So when COVID hit, this committee said we're doing away with the subsidies, and this year we're doing away with the subsidy transfer. But in the
Right.
budget discussions, we went ahead and approved that transfer to the utility fund.
Okay, it's interesting. You have utility fund and you have general fund. I don't believe that they went to the utility fund, that is water and wastewater. I think that they went to general fund.
Alfonso, it hasn't happened yet. They do their transfers this month.
Okay, because they used to be in general fund, and this is how they used to take that money. So if we had enough reserves in the general fund, I don't understand why they will be taking from the utilities fund if you had that money in the general fund.
I'm not sure I was clear. We're taking the money from the general fund and transferring it into the utility fund.
Yeah,
It's the subsidy contribution.
Yeah, there used to be a transfer money, and this is why at this moment wasn't clear for me. But because we don't used to touch the utility fund, used to be there, and only we used to transfer money for utilities from general fund. So this year, at the end, I saw that they transferred the money, but it was from general fund, not from utilities.
Right. We've done this every year. We transfer money from the general fund into the utility fund.
Okay,
So,
thank you, thank you.
okay, good. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
No problem, no problem. Thank you, Wanda.
Okay,
Can I clarify something?
you can.
John?
I did not think that this committee ever voted to not subsidize the water. And it sounded like you said we did.
I believe we did.
No, the committee voted to hold off on the transfer of the subsidy until such time as the budget was able to be fully reviewed at the end of the year. So during the normal transfer, we said, well, hold on, we're not going to transfer because of COVID. And then as the year got closer and we ended the year in much better position, instead of waiting until next year to make that transfer, skipping a year, in other words, we went ahead and made the transfer.
Okay.
So, it was all that COVID, that whole list of things, if you remember that.
It almost sounds like that we're going to miss a year of subsidy, and that confuses me. That I did not think we were ever going to do that.
We could have if the COVID situation had been worse than it was. Because the initial projections were so dire, we held off on any transfers. And then as the numbers started coming in and we were in a better position. Okay.
We kind of, I think in my mind, we deferred the transfer, but not ever thought about not doing it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Defer is a
I
better
recall
word.
that too.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. It was prior to knowing how bad it was going to be, and it's not as bad as we thought. So, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Defer
Thank
is
you.
a much better word.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Wanda.
Okay.
Anybody have other questions for Wanda? Thank you, Wanda.
Hey.
I'm obviously having some camera problems here. All right, we're on to the item number 5, discussing possible actions on proposed committee assignments from council meeting 10-6. I didn't put this on, so I'm not sure what this is about.
So the committees, not necessarily budget and finance, but we had a couple of committees who had items on their agenda that they were still marching toward. And obviously with budget constraints and COVID, council needed to put the brakes and say, okay, here's what we would like you to work on for the remainder of the year. And so that's what that particular agenda item addresses. There was a couple of committees that had specific items. And then as the council and I discussed, okay, Sylvia, where, as we're moving forward, which of the committees do you think are going to be absolutely critical in moving us forward? And obviously I told you guys planning and environmental, budget and finance, public works, zoning, actually all of them, but budget and finance, public works, P&E, and zoning, particularly so as we talk about capital planning, as we talk about master plans, and we talk about investment policies. And so for the remainder of 2020, the council directive to the committees is in front of you. That's what they would like for us to continue to work on and begin strategizing into next year. For this committee, it's nothing that we haven't already talked about. There was some other committees that we had to kind of put the brakes on some things.
Okay. I was going to say, those are things we've talked about.
Yeah.
We've been talking about for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't going to be a surprise to budget and finance. I think.
Along with our normal.
Yeah. CED, for example, had a lot of programs that because of COVID and budget can't really happen. And so instead of allowing the committee to take off on a different tangent, it was more, let's, really focus on closing out any projects and any remaining reports that may be due.
So this action item also talks about committee assignments too, and committee applications, correct?
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so the committee application is a little bit changes here, and really the most significant change is you have to submit an application for each committee that you want to apply for. And that's because if you recall at the beginning of this year, we had several committee members who had listed first, second, and third choices. And the committee chairs were like, okay, well, they want to be on the committee, even though it was their third choice. And so we've had some attendance issues with some of the committees on some of those folks. And really the intent is to give the chair a really clear group of folks who want to serve, are interested to serve, and have the time to serve. And, want to maybe put their skills to serve.
So kind of the main thing is that if you're on 2 committees, like John, I know you're on 2 committees, you have to fill out application for both of them. So it's a little more work on your part. But the confusing part for council was when we got all these committees applications, we couldn't tell what people really wanted as their first choice. And it was very confusing. And it was difficult to make those assignments. So that's really the point of it.
May I jump in? Sylvia, could you change your screen to the application?
Sure, sorry. There you go.
So this is the proposed new application, and then right after this, you'll see the proposed old application. And this has already been approved by council.
And that question mark, this question mark, please return. This should be November 13th. So we will fix that. And the reason for the November 13th date is council is expected to go on retreat the week of the 17th, immediately after the election. And so we'd like to give the council an opportunity at retreat to take a look at the applications and begin to make assignments at that point. I know this year it took us a little longer. I think everybody was seated probably in January. So, and there's a lot of work to do, so we don't want to waste any time.
Mark?
So I think this is a good step in the direction of getting to, clear up some of the confusion. But one of the things that may be missing is what if somebody wants to serve on multiple committees, but then a committee is full and they have a third alternative or third choice? It's not clear like what the process would be. Would they submit 3 applications, and how would they identify their preference in that choice?
So yes, they would have to submit multiple applications for each. I know this form says 2, but you must submit for each committee that you want to apply for. And that's a perfect example, Mark. If a committee is full, and I've never seen committees turn away anybody, they appoint alternates. So if the committee is full, that's going to be up to the committee chair and the committee liaison to make recommendation as to whether that person gets seated on that committee or not.
Yeah, and it may be something, in the guidance is, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm sorry, Mark. What denotes full?
That's a good question. And we wrangled with it.
How would you know if a committee's full?
Yep, we wrangled with that this year. For example, in, I'm not sure if it was CED or Arts Commission, where there was, double-digit membership, and it's hard to get a quorum when the membership is that big. And so those are things the council and the liaisons are going to have to wrangle with, because for budget and finance, for example, a 10-member committee might be already pushing it, but in CED, maybe they want to be okay with 15 members. So that's going to be, and it really depends on the work assignments. I expect budget and finance, as we talk about investment policy and we talk about capital policy, we're going to have some little breakout groups. There's going to have to be, I'm going to need some help, obviously, and Susanna's on board now, but there's still a lot of homework to do among all the committees. So that's going to depend on the chair and the council liaison.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some nuances that are always, challenging when we don't have like a clear definition. Like, what if the chair's not coming back next year for that committee? Well, then who makes the decisions on, prioritizing membership and, the size of the committee? But those things are things we've always, I guess, kind of informally worked through, and it's worked out. But, I like the idea of having a clearer indication, having been on council during some of those deliberations where, it is a little uncertain, and if people know they have to submit a separate application, that's helpful. That shows a little bit more level of commitment, I think.
Yep. So,
Mark,
for example,
I've never been queried
You've never been what?
committee by the council. So
I think Michael, you broke up during that during your talk.
I don't think the committee chairs have ever been involved in selecting the members. It's always been council.
That is correct.
Yep.
So, for example, CED has a rather large committee membership, and this past week they were unable to obtain a quorum because the number necessary is really large. So those are things I'd like the council to consider when we think about numbers. Obviously, we have a very small application pool, a population pool. I don't want to turn anybody away, but if they're able to, maybe CED was their first, but they want to serve on arts as a second and CED's full, that at least gives the council a better indication of preferences and where folks should actually be appointed.
Good. Anybody else? Okay.
So I would just suggest to this month sometime to print this out or go online and get these filled in. So.
Yes, they are Adobe fillable now, and they do have there's a submit button on the internet one where you can fill it out and then hit submit.
Cool.
And then on number 2 of the agenda, complete an open records training course. If you go to chapter 31 on rules of committees, 3119, and go to C,
Come on, good boy. Okay.
There you go, Rudy.
there. And then C says the committees must conduct their meetings in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, but it doesn't say anything about training for the open records training course. So we might use that line right in there and add and must complete a training course.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because it's open meetings training, and then as well as we go into using OpenGov more this year, there'll be an OpenGov training for the committees because we plan, even though the committee, for example, aren't going to be as heavy on the budget and finance portion of OpenGov, there's still a storyboard component that is going to act as their communication tool. It's going to act as the information face to the public that lets people know what these committees are working on, what their expected due dates are, their last posting to the council. So it's going to kind of serve as a hear ye, this is where you come find information on CED or Arts Commission or any one of the other committees.
So do you want to put it on the application or do you want to put it in the rules?
No, it'll be in the rules.
Okay.
Somebody has their
Michael.
hand. Terry has his hand up.
Thank you, ma'am. I took the open records training and I had have a certificate and I submitted it to the city. And I found it very useful. You take it online to the Attorney General's office. It's worthwhile doing, just if you're involved in government in any way and have an interest in how it operates and what the regulations are. I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. And so I encourage people to do it. I've done it, and the city has a record of it.
Terry, did it scare you? I've had a couple of people say I don't ever don't want to participate anymore because now I'm scared.
Oh no. But it did inform me. I found out things I didn't know. So it was good. We lose Michael?
You can do it, Terry.
There he
Yeah,
is.
sorry, I'm up there. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I missed all that.
It was just about the opens meeting training and the ability for the committees to use the storyboards component of OpenGov. They won't be as involved on the financial side as this committee is, but there is a storyboard component where they will be putting out their information to the residents as to not just the committee agenda, committee accomplishments, committee goals, committee reports, those kinds of things. So it should be a place to go land and be able to read the entire story of that committee for that year.
You know, another suggestion, just briefly, is Robert's rules.
Yes.
Some basic etiquette.
We tried that.
Just a suggestion, I think, for people to understand motions and seconds and how to table properly. And I'm not casting aspersions, don't misunderstand that, but I think that works really well for us as a group and helps us with our protocol. So might be something the other committees could benefit from. We're getting off track here. My apologies.
Yeah, no, truly, that depends on the committee structure. I had some committees who, came out with pitchforks. They didn't want to do Robert's rules. It really is the committee dynamic on the communication. Sure. But
okay. Anything else? Everybody good? All right. We're on to item 6, review, discuss, and possible actions on the fiscal year 21 budget process. So this is a continuation from, and we've kind of had some time here from the frenzy that we went through. And I think one of the things that came out of that was, at least just my interpretation briefly, is us struggling with the new format, moving from the old format and trying to integrate that into our process, and then COVID and going home. And there was all those variables that we were struggling with. Well, I think one of the things that came away from that, I'm not sure, and Sylvia, this is just open for a conversation, is how we start that again next year. I do know, I think, and I checking everybody's pulse, that nobody wants to do that again. So I think we go into the coming year with a real clear expectation of what that process will look like.
I completely agree. That was like giving birth, and my youngest will be 22. Let's just put it that way. There's a couple of process things I've been talking to the council about in terms of, we keep hearing the word transparency, and, I struggle with, what does that mean, right? I am a process person in terms of step 1, step 2, step 3, and then, what's the ultimate? But the difference in me is that I'm looking at the end goal and I kind of work my way back. For me, there's some things that this committee, we committed to doing a monthly budget review, right? And so as I was talking to Regine earlier and during the week, we were kind of smooth sailing before COVID hit in terms of the committees, right? And so you guys would get financial reports. You maybe notice something in it, you tell Regine, go fix it. You trusted that it happened, and then you review that report in the next quarter. And then in the third quarter, you're going, hey, wait a minute, what happened here? Well, 9 months have gone by, right? And today's reports are a perfect example of that. As there was some discrepancies or some things that weren't clear in the reports. One of the things I really want us to work on is, as we move, now that the budget is in OpenGov, is going through on a monthly basis, what do those things look like? What adjustments are we needing to make? What reconciliations are we needing to make? And because it's all out there, and we don't have to send Regine back to the office with Excel spreadsheets and reprinting 55 of them, the process is going to be a lot faster. Now, faster is not a better thing. Faster is not a better thing. What faster does is allow us to be more methodical and take the time that we need into those areas where we need to be looking. And I say the capital plan as the perfect example, because this year the capital plan wasn't in the budget, right? We only worked on operations. They really should be married. It should be married, because I want this committee also to say, we want our money to work for us this way in the investment policy, or we want our money to work for us this way if any of the other funds are struggling. So there's a lot of work to do, but I don't want to go through what we went through last year.
That's why we're talking about it now. I think if we can build some consensus on how we're going to approach the budget. I mean, January's not that far off, right? And that kind of slowly start the grind. The good thing is we're not going to have the COVID variable to look like, and some degree. I think still unknown question is what the process is going to look like for the committee members in terms of documentation and how we do that review with open government. I mean, I really sense the frustration of us not having our books, right? And being able to review the paper and the changes and those kind of things. So I guess I'm just throwing that out there saying, how can we meld those two so that the committee isn't lost like we were last time? It wasn't so much the COVID issue, right? It was just, what are we doing this weekend? And then sheets were coming, and we were, anyway.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think this year, staff, we learned, or at least I did for sure, there's some components within OpenGov that allow us to attach things. I think the thing I struggle with is when we're looking at a sheet and a change needs to be made and the domino effect it has into the other sheets. Susanna has linked all of those sheets already. So when you make one change, it dominoes automatically into the rest of it. I want us to be comfortable with the sheets. I want the sheets up on the screen, but I also want them to be dynamic so that when we change it, it all changes. And you guys are going to have to help me on how to accomplish that so that we're not printing a whole lot of paper.
Michael?
We just lost him, so I'm open for committee
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah, well, for all the committee, we can wait for Michael, or I will ask my question.
Go ahead. I'm back. I just,
Okay,
no camera.
yeah, when we were looking the last year, they promised to have a monthly budget review, the revenue and the expenditures. So in that case, that is part of the budget. So at this moment, we are 3 days to finish the first month. When they will publish in open government the expenditures and the revenues, we will have the revenues because I saw that, but the expenditures for the month of October, Sylvia.
We just finished an automated process where it's going to be coming from MIP to OpenGov automatically. So we won't even have to do anything. It should be, Susanna, how often is that update going to be happening?
They told me it would happen every day.
Yep. So Alfonso, as we enter the expenditures, I mean, you should literally be able to see it every single day.
Well, I was thinking more in different way, because if you're talking about perhaps six funds, for example, you have the utilities fund, street fund, etc. So when you have your funds, you will allocate that expenditures to each fund. So we have to go to each fund in order to know how much you expend. But I think that will be nice to have some summary of expenditures. Oh, okay. And in that summary of expenditures, we can match that with the revenues. And in that way, that will be much better to balance our budget. So, and we promise that. So I think it's important that they allocate for accounts, different expenditures. But I was thinking more to have an abstract or resume of all of them and versus the revenues. And in that way, we will have a much better idea and we will follow that fiscal responsibility.
That's a very good point. So here's what we can do, and literally probably as I'm talking to you, Susanna can do it. The budget has already been entered, right? And it's already, as I said, it's already, the information, the data migration has been completed. So it's an updated amount. The summary page that you're talking about is going to end up being one of these storyboards. We're going to call it the Sunset Valley, we'll call it the Budget and Finance Committee or whatever we want to call it. And within the storyboard will be, I'll show you. This is just an example. This is the newsletter.
A monthly
so within
budget review.
Yes, within the budget, yes, sir. Within the story, within the information piece is, I think I scrolled too fast. Will be something like this. We'll have some narrative as to what's happening, and we can make this table look like whatever we want to make the table look like. But it's my hope that we're all looking at one place and we're all looking at the same information. So this is the newsletter that went out in digital form. This is the budget in digital form, and you guys already know what that looks like. So my hope is that we have a similar storyboard for our reports to budget and finance, if that's okay with this committee on how they want to see things.
So I'm still not clear on what that's going to look like. Can you send us an example of what you want us to look, so we can begin to see the year-to-dates, the percentage to be kind of the similar format that we were using, that it doesn't have to be the same, but this has the same data points. That I think that's critical for us as a committee.
So we will create a report for you that is going to be called, these are all of the reports that we have right now. So each one of the funds, like here's the crime control fund, the drainage fund, each one of the funds has a report associated with it. And this all ties into the budget. Same thing, you can drill down revenues and expenses. So what I want to do is give it to you in one central place with some narrative, right? What's that fund doing right now? But then after you read the narrative, you're able to jump in yourself and take a look and verify the data points. Let's see if I can
And
give
you
you
guys are working on putting that together?
like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if Susanna can finish that in the 10 minutes that we're talking. So here's what the digital budget, once everything is done internally, this is an example of what I would like to provide, not just the committee, but the community. So this would read City of Sunset Valley monthly budget report, for example. And you can jump into all of the funds. You can jump into a fund summary. You can jump into any particular information piece. This one is still missing some text, but anything that the committee wants to see or wants to make sure for that particular month we're clear to the residents is very easy to put together now that everything is in MIP and OpenGov. So the short answer to that is however the committee wants to see it, or whatever relevant information the committee feels is necessary for that month's budget report, happy to do that. Or show all of the funds and highlight one fund, for example, for that particular month. I'm open to any suggestions.
Michael, may I jump in?
Hey, Charles. Yes, good to hear you.
Yeah, hello. Good evening.
Hey, Charles.
I'd like to talk a little bit about these reports and the use of OpenGov, the whole notion of process, and I'm thinking that these reports that Sylvia that you mentioned, where they basically kind of take a stab at whatever we're particularly looking at for a meeting at hand. I'm seeing these reports as essentially links, a series of links with associated commentary in the report, but everything going back to OpenGov. I'm hoping that, for this next session of the Budget and Finance Committee, that we divorce ourselves entirely of paper. We don't want any of these spreadsheets. They're a nuisance. They're difficult to use. They're not very responsive to change, right? I mean, we have this tool, OpenGov, and I think we all need to, to put our arms around it and make it work for us so that we're all intimately familiar with this tool. And I think we can have a lot more interaction in our sessions. They can be, that word dynamic, I think they can be much more dynamic. And we need to work with this OpenGov tool. It's got some kinks. I found some problems with it, but I don't think any of these problems, this tool apparently is a mature tool. I shouldn't be seeing the problems I was seeing. Maybe I wasn't using it properly. But I think that's what we need going forward. And once the Finance Committee is comfortable with this tool, hopefully that comfort will expand out into the city so that people outside of the Finance Committee can start using this tool and become more understanding of our process and become a more dynamic or a more integrating element, from the outside into the city and into advising or giving opinion on how the city is run, from a resident perspective. Thank you.
So I want to give you guys an example of what we did for CED. So CED requested some help with economic development updates. They wanted kind of their own newsletter. They wanted to make sure that we were sharing information that's shared in the council reports that we provide. And so Matt worked on this particular page for CED. It's called Economic Development Updates. It has the important City of Austin links. It has our current, I'm sorry, let me get my toolbar out of the way. So it has just important information about what is going on around us. So here is the most recent sales tax report. And so it has this type of information. This is CED. I envision that we're going to get to a more interactive component to where anybody can touch on a month and drill down into additional information. This is just the Excel sheets that, you know, staff had been keeping up until this particular point. So I envision budget and finance having a very similar page that has monthly reports. And then, like I said, if we need to highlight anything in particular, the beauty about this is when you update it once, it updates throughout the whole piece. You don't have to do it like on a website and make sure that you remembered the 15 places that it was, because it's all linked together. So, but that's just for the monthly budget report. And hopefully once we're doing that on a monthly basis and we get comfortable, the budget process won't be so, so hard.
Okay, so
We lost you again, Michael.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Charles.
My question is for the members of the committee. How many of you feel comfortable navigating around OpenGov and feel confident in how well you can use it?
Not at all.
So typically with systems like this, you know, for people to use it, you need a certain amount of training. And I don't think we've had that training. Are there any plans for that? Not just showing us the tool, but actually doing some in-depth training and walking people through the use of the tool.
Yes, when the committees are seated, and that's some of the conversation that, as we talked about committee structure, we talked about the mandating the use of OpenGov. We had such pushback this year that to mandate something like that would have been even more difficult. And so there has to be a commitment for folks to want to embrace the technology and move forward. And that's a commitment from staff as well to do the training that's necessary.
Yeah, I don't think your mandate works without doing the training.
Oh, for sure.
The other thing I wanted to say was, sorry.
Go ahead, Charles.
Is it useful for us to get together as a committee and quickly talk about what we want to see on something like a monthly budget report, kind of getting down to specifics?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I was going to make a suggestion, Sylvie, when you said, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we want is what we had, you know, because that's all we know and that's what we've been working with. However, the data that were in those monthly budget reports, because the data that was in there was what we needed to see as a committee, what's happening monthly, where are we in the year-long budget, what are the percentages? I mean, all that data that was in there, if it's all in open government, that's fine. But if it can be wrapped up into some pages for the committee or something like that, so that we could see, we know what we had, but we don't know what the tool will do. So if you can help us understand how those two integrate together, I don't think nobody's saying, but we're just saying we're not sure how to make those two. You know better than we do how to make those two integrate together. We're just trying to understand. Alfonso?
We can.
Mike. I think this is why I try to say when they will have that report. Why? If, for example, they have that report in 2 weeks, we can have the training simultaneously. So everybody in his computer will follow what do they say, and we go step by step. At this moment, this in my opinion, is not productive in this way. Why? Because not everybody has the same level. So if we are talking, for example, general fund, streets, crime, green tax, and we start looking the deductions and more specific later with administration, municipal court, public works, utilities, etc. When we will be watching that, everybody step by step, we can stop Suzanne and say, no, Suzanne, I don't understand this step. So we can fabricate that ourselves. And that will take a little time. But if we go that in a step by step, we will understand much better. Because after 1 month, we will say, no, Suzanne, why we don't attach some historical 3 years or 5 years? And in that way, we start moving the historical, but we are building that together. And this was why I think that it's critical that if in 2 weeks we have that monthly budget review, will be clear, but everybody, we have to follow that by training. I am again with Charles. Charles, he's right. We don't have the proper training. So if we don't have that, it's impossible. And it's nice to see the movie, but we don't understand that. And this is not the function that we have. So as a suggestion, if in 2 weeks they have that, and if we can go step by step, everybody, and we need to be patient and with respect to others, I will propose that.
So we can absolutely do that. What I would request from the committee is, if you're telling me we want to see what we had before, I mean, that's exactly what you're telling me. I want to see what we had before. Then we will work on delivering something that in digital format. There's going to be some components that I don't think we can bring about. Some of those percentages, Susanna can be a little bit more clear. We had some issue with the percentage, like not the percentage year over year, but like the percentage from year 1 to year 5 kind of thing and how many columns, but we'll work through it. I just want to be specific on what the committee wants, so that way we can formulate a training, because what this committee wants is different than what CED is going to want or Arts Commission wants, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand you guys are in the meat and potatoes. You're in the tools and technology of it. You're in the bowels. I understand that. I just want to know specifically what is it that you want to see so that we can build that and train that.
Well, I think at this point, if I'm understanding, we're just talking about the monthly budget reports. We're not talking about next year's budget, right? Okay. So the previous format that, and I think everybody has a copy of their old monthly budget reports, had that statistical analysis that we were looking for. My hoping, like Alfonso said, is that if we do that enough, then, and as budget time gets closer, we'll be more comfortable with using open government for next year's budget. The reason I put that on, I think the earlier and quicker we start talking about this, the quicker we can get to become a well-oiled machine before budget time comes and go through that a lot smoother.
So this is a snapshot. What's on the screen is a snapshot of monthly reports that we can put together, and it's revenues over expenditures, and you're able to drill down the revenue specifically into the very same way that you were able to drill down into the worksheets. So if there's something different that you want to see from the report, and I'm just going to click March of 18-19. The data gets as granular as you want it to get, and we build the data as granular as you want it to get. My point is, to what level of granularity do you want to see that?
Michael, can I jump in?
Charles.
Is that me or Terry first?
Terry. Yeah, it's Terry.
Terry, you're muted.
Telling me. I think part of the communication problem we're having right now is I think Sylvia's coming from an inductive reasoning approach to coming up with the report. And I think that Michael is talking about a deductive reasoning approach, basically taking the template that we've used that's proven effective and go backwards into these, what I think Sylvia is calling granular items. And that's why we're not hooking up. Because Sylvia's wanting to take the pieces and build the whole. And I think Michael's saying, look at the whole that we've had and put the pieces in it. Is that useful?
Yes, to some extent, but with all due respect, here's where, when I talk about the level of granularity, here's what I need help from this committee to focus on. When we talk about small tools and equipment, for example, and we talk about every year we cut it by $250, we cut it by this, we cut it by that, yada 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 yada. The story behind that is the policy for that, is the policy for the amount of money that we don't necessarily inventory or carry over, because we call those consumable items, right? So I need more help from the committee with policy and process, and then the numbers will fall into place. I'm happy to show, because this is a very simple report. Literally, Susanna can put it together in 5 minutes. But I'm going to use the tools example again. So this year, at the end of the year, Regina and I were talking about there was going to be some money left over, or we were going to end better. And so let's go ahead and buy the ice machine that this committee's been, harping on for some time. Let's go ahead and buy it this year. And Regine said, no, we can't do that because we do a line item budget, and that's essentially how we keep inventory. Well, but you don't inventory anything that's under $1,000, right? We don't necessarily do that because those are called consumables or expendables, however you want to call it. And what's our annual inventory and what's our loss going out of that warehouse? We don't have those numbers right now. So we can argue over $250 in screwdrivers, but I'm going to tell you, we probably bought 4 sets of $999 tires that I don't know where they're at. I mean, I'm not saying that happened, but see where I'm going?
Okay, why don't we do this? Here's a suggestion. If the committee members can receive a previous financial report, a PDF document, and maybe we can look at that and then just set up a meeting just for that, so that you guys can look at what we were looking at previously and say, oh yeah, OpenGov does that. Here's the link to click on.
Oh, for sure.
I think that would help the committee have the conversation, because my intention was not to design a financial report tonight. My intention was to talk about the budget process for next year, designing next year's budget. So we've gotten a little bit in the weeds, but I think the point is well taken. How do we still, like Terry said, how do we integrate these two components together? And the best way I can tell you is this is what we know, and open government. Well, okay, how do we marry those two together?
So
we may have to give up and we may have to shelve the whole thing, but we just need to understand where to look for the information.
We can absolutely do that. Hyperlink,
Okay.
Hyperlink information. Here's how you get there, or here's where you can find that information.
Okay. Does that work, guys? Oh, Regine, you had a question?
I just have a couple of comments. I agree with what Terry is saying, that I think Sylvia's talking what can be created from the OpenGov, which, and Michael, you're talking about the financials, the financial statements where we show what the expense was for the month, what is for the year, what the budget was, how much we have left, and what the percentage is, that report.
Right.
I think when in talking with Susanna, I believe we can get that report from MIP and put it into OpenGov, and it'll I don't know if it'll show up exactly like that, but it'll be like that report, which I'm not sure Sylvia has had a chance to look at it yet.
Okay.
So I do have a couple of questions before we do that. So like this report that's on the screen right now, this shows everything together. It shows the revenue, the sales tax revenue, utility sales. It's not broken down by fund. And so if there's some way we can do it, by fund, and then a summary page or something like that, like Alfonso wants, that would be something that we can build on with that. So my suggestion is, I think Susanna and Sylvia can get together, see what that report looks like now that we can get it from MIP. I think that's something that just can be put into general gov and however they tweak it. And I think that might be a good starting point. And so that it'll be kind of sort of what you like, what y'all are looking about, but it'll be on OpenGov in that format. Suzanne, am I saying that right about the MIP part?
Yeah, from what I followed, it sounded like that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's that statement of revenues and expenses that we are looking for that will be in OpenGov. That I think that will be a good start, and then we can tweak it from there.
What is MIP?
The accounting
Charles?
program.
I'm sorry?
The
It's our
accounting
accounting
program.
software.
The accounting program.
Okay, I need to learn.
Charles?
I know I'm going to regret saying this, but
What happened to me?
But
is it
What did
is it
happen
me or
to
is it
you?
Charles Goyette talking?
oh,
That
is
was
it
me
Charles?
talking, Charles Goyette. I thought I was next. Hey, I want to jump
Yeah,
in.
you
I'm
were.
sorry, Charles.
Go for it.
I heard what Terry said, and I think Terry hit the nail on the head. And Alfonso talking about the training, the need for training, and I think we're making this more difficult than it is, really. As far as training goes, I hate that word, but I think here's my suggestion. My suggestion is Sylvia has a basic idea, I think, of what this process is, a process that is unbeknownst to me. I don't know what this process is. I made that admission long ago. There doesn't seem to be one as far as I can tell, except this mechanical process using sheets that we're dependent upon. My objective is to get away from that, to focus at OpenGov. I say allow staff to create this report as best as they know how to create it in terms of what they think we expect. And then, we call that a straw man, right? Once that straw man's in place, now the budget committee can pick on it. Oh, I don't like this. Hey, I like the way you did this. I'd like to enhance that. It's an evolving process. And in the process of evolving, we're using that OpenGov tool. And that operation, that working with that tool, seeing how it's used in the context of our meeting, I think we will just naturally become accustomed to it. We will start working with it. It's not really that difficult to use. We'll become more familiar with it through practice, seeing other people like staff who I consider the experts with this tool, showing us in the process of revealing the information we're looking for. And if we're working on our own computers with them, I think this all will happen organically, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think we need to let staff who's familiar with this tool present us with what they think we want, and then we will start fine-tuning that as we go along. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles. Charles Young?
I was going to say, I build systems like this for a living, and I also have, I think, a good understanding of what you want, Michael. And I was willing to volunteer to work with staff to try to help them get to the point where we've got something that works for all the committee members. I think that's going to be kind of an iterative process, which really is kind of what Charles Goyette was just saying. But we need to end up with something that makes sense to the committee members in order for them to use it effectively.
I agree with what Charles is saying as well. I think that's what I'm saying, that transition over, right? This is where we were. Because we haven't figured out how to get over to where we need, and we're trying to develop a platform to bring us up to the new format, which is the start. I just don't know how to kick. And then, now, Alfonso said something about 2 weeks. Does that work for you guys?
Yep,
Sylvia?
this is pretty a robust tool. What I'm gonna work with, Suzanne, is we're gonna take, one of your reports. First of all, we're gonna hyperlink, Michael, where you can go look at that information. But beyond that is how do we create the template so that that's what it looks like all the time. And again, there's going to be some constraints because the percentages, et cetera, that you guys are accustomed to seeing, I don't know that they can come across, but we'll figure it out. And Susanna has her hand raised, but she is self-muted.
I just wanted to say that I agree with both Charleses. And I personally hate training as well. Like, I can go to it all day, but the best way that I learn is just getting my hands in it and doing it. And maybe that's kind of what everyone needs, because we can sit here and talk about it all day, but if you don't try and do anything in it, it might be kind of difficult to understand what we're talking about. And then I would also very much take up Charles Young on his offer if you would like to come help me, because I've never trained somebody on software before, so it might be helpful to have somebody who is proficient at that.
Yeah, my time is limited, but I'll be glad to help wherever I can, Susanna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. And it's, again, like I said, it's a bridge to where we're going, right? We're trying to figure out how to bridge from where we are to where we're going. I don't think anybody's saying, no, we don't want to go there. We do want to go there. We recognize the trend. Just how do we bridge there? To say, develop a report, yeesh, that's a tough way to get there. So, all right, anybody else? But I would then like to follow up with what will next year's budget process look like?
Well, hopefully once the monthly reports are done, it's really just a compilation of those reports.
Well, again, but what I heard from the committee last year, and maybe by us working in that people didn't want to have to click on a screen to try and figure out what the potential budget is. And maybe we'll feel, even I'll feel differently as we get further along, but it was just such a bad experience. I can't figure out how you can get there. But I'm ready to be shown, and I think the rest of the committee is as well, how we can look at the information and that we had in last year's budget sheets and see that in the budget. So a bit at a time, progress, not perfection, and we'll get better at it.
Yeah, Mike. Mike.
We can hear you, Alfonso.
Yeah, I think that what is the problem? When I say training, they say we can use our computers and we can do that ourselves. Well, at this moment, our computer is watching you. So we don't have another computer. So we don't have flexibility to practice in parallel with these kind of things. Because in order to practice, we need to have one specific computer only dedicated to practice and follow whatever you are talking. So it's not so easy in that way. But this is why, if in 2 weeks they have the first report, specific, analytic, with expenditures and revenues, in that way we will check, and if they allow us to practice in our computer, not watching only that is your computer, I think that will be beneficial. I don't know how easy is that. When I used to teach, I used to have 2 computers. So for me, it was very easy to go with the students, because in one, I have the things that we were talking, and with the other, I was practicing with examples and that kind of things. But I used to have 2 computers. I don't know how easy it would be, but still, we have to learn.
If you are talking about like training, you can show somebody how to do something on the screen, and then you can give them like time to do it on their own. So that way they can just minimize the Zoom meeting and then do it on their own. So there's ways to do it with only one computer as well.
Okay, excellent.
Would it be reasonable for us to expect that you guys are going to show us how to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see if we can do that before the budget starts, so that we're all in agreement.
So when Alfonso references 2 weeks, he's referencing because we said we were going to have end of month reports. That's what this committee asked the council to approve, and council did approve that. They said you're going to have monthly expense revenue reports and other critical data reports. And so when we get that first report out, we will have a how-to list of how to go find or go dig or hyperlink or whatever, and we'll go through that step by step.
Okay. Even, for the committee and for council and for the citizens, if the citizens want to know what's going on a monthly basis, if we can't figure out, I don't know that, I think it'd be a challenge for everybody. So
Transparency.
all right, let's move on.
Wanda has her hand
Yeah,
up.
can I have one little statement? I do find what's very helpful to me is having 2 monitors. So then you can open up one document there and then also do the meeting. So if that's a possibility, that has been very helpful to me. And then the last thing I want,
Buy city monitors?
have what?
Will the city, can we put that in the budget?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Now I see. Yeah.
But you can also use like an iPad if you have another device also, just to help you a little bit. And the other thing, I actually forgot to mention this in my council report, so I'm bringing it up now because it relates to our budget. And that is, Sylvia did this fantastic job of reducing our TRMS liability. She reduced it by $400,000, which equates to $50,000 per year. But long term, there'll be a $4,000 reduction in our liability. If you remember, every year we get that unfunded or funded pension liability. And so she did a fantastic job with that. So Sylvia, if you want to explain that a little more fully, but that was a really great win for us.
Thanks. We just really quickly, the employees' retirement, Texas Municipal Retirement System is legislatively mandated by the state. We have a statutory maximum. It's called stat max of how much a city can contribute. And so this year they can be asked to contribute, I would say. They can't ask us to contribute anymore, but what would happen is our unfunded liability would grow. And that unfunded liability is if everybody who was retirement eligible retired on that same day, how much would the city be upside down? So there were some things in our TMRS plan. It has about 6 components that you can tweak. One of them was updated service credits that really is affecting the upper end employees, myself included. And if we remove that or reduced it from 100% to 50%, that reduced that unfunded liability by a little more than 400,000. But more importantly, it allowed us to not have to contribute $50,000 this year and remove stat max. Removing stat max is one of the last things you want to do, because that's basically removing the ceiling as to what a city could be required to contribute to the retirement plan. So obviously we don't want to do that. We need a ceiling, whether it's clearly visible or not. But and there's a lot of little things like that within all of our plans that make a big difference at the end of the day. So we are now one of the better funded retirement plans. I think we're funded at 92.7%. I don't think there's a city in the state that's at 100, and I certainly know we're in the top 5% of cities on now how much we are fully funded or almost fully funded.
Excellent.
Just a comment, a logistics comment. In my work that I do on a daily basis, I've got 3 monitors. One's the MacBook and 2 23-inch monitors. And it takes too much to try to go back and forth. And you can get them at Discount Electronics, a fairly new monitor for $100 or less.
Okay, we're on to the sales.
Sales tax report.
Are you there, Sylvia?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't see you. I thought you disappeared. I was waiting for you to come back on.
I can't get my camera to stay on. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It draws a lot of juice. I understand.
Yeah.
You know, year to date over shortfall, I think that column speaks for itself. We are at the end of September approaching $750,000, and while it is not as
Sil-
big a number as
Sylvia,
we had. Hello.
you're using, September numbers are not in there. You'll
This
have
is-
to, you need to scroll down.
Scroll down a little bit. Next
This is my-
report.
There you go. No.
No more.
Yeah, you're on the text.
Keep going.
Yep.
I thought I was on that. I thought I was on the right page.
No.
There's 7 pages before you get down to the September 2020.
Yep. Yep.
There you go.
There you go.
That's it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So obviously the number keeps it's still in the red. It's still quite a large number. Granted, it is not the dire forecast that we had predicted early on in the year, but it is still a large number. And if I were to take that in terms of that's an entire department, that's an entire division. We continue to look for ways to get leaner and meaner. You know, I have had already anecdotal discussions with some of the retailers in the shopping district in terms of what their long-term leases are looking like, what their outlook is. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit scary for me. We have
Yep.
engaged a marketing firm to help us, you know, try to identify Sunset Valley and our sense of place and what draws people here, et cetera, et cetera. But when I'm already aware that the Kohl's property is going to be up for lease in 18 months and whether or not Kohl's stays here is at question. We do have a lot of prospects. There's a company looking at the Red Robin. There's a company that split the old Dress Barn. It's now Spectrum, and it's going to be a nail salon in the second piece. That's the other thing is Spectrum's not going to necessarily generate a bunch of sales tax, but the people, the walk-in traffic that it will generate is good. And we can hope that there is some sales tax that come out of that. But the nail place, I've had more nail salons want to come through in the last 2 months than I had seen in my previous years here. You guys know those aren't big sales tax generators unless they sell a product within the store. So really not just how we reinvent ourselves, but keeping a very, very, very close eye on these numbers. And again, making sure that our budget is elastic enough. So if we need to ratchet back on the mowing contract, for example, if they mow, you know, every other month instead of every month to reduce that in half, or you know, we don't have the engineers work on a particular project, we freeze a task order because our new engineers, everything is by task order. I don't have a general umbrella amount. I know exactly how much is allocated to each project. So if I need them to stop looking at Jones Road, or I need them to stop looking at the pond, et cetera, I have a way to immediately freeze that expense. And so that's my hope in the future as we look at these numbers on a much more micro level in the future, is how are we wanting to bounce back, and how are we tightening the belt, or in some cases loosening the belt if that's needed. I don't think that we've seen the bottom of COVID yet. I think that's going to happen, you know, post-January, post-February into the spring. And, you know, my hope is that we start getting better.
Well, I hope
Sylvia,
you're right, because
Bob
continue to
Brown,
spend money.
I think this represents what I have thought from the get-go of this, and that is that retail is changing. And I think we need someone that's going to look at that and study that and try to figure out how we might either reconfigure the concept of the shopping centers. I had mentioned before, the thing that's happening everywhere now is they're building condos and expensive ones and so forth on the second floor. As I said before, it's happened on Congress, South Congress, and up around the airport, and it's getting more and more successful. And so I just think we need to take a fresh look at, I'm not sure we can revive the shopping center. We might, but then I would be thrilled if we could. But we've got to look at alternatives. They're now talking about the retail business with people confined is moving to online at a much more rapid pace than was anticipated. And I don't understand altogether the taxing that we get, but my question would be the three giants online now are Amazon and Walmart and Target. And I heard some analysis today on business that smaller retailers are going to the same thing. They're just having storefronts, but the main business is going to be online, and the store is going to be a pickup center. And so my question is, do we get any of the tax revenue that goes to this online business, or is it just going to the state?
It depends. So for example, Academy, let's say Academy and the parcel that Academy sits on comes to the city and says, we would like an incentive plan because we want to make improvements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the city says, okay, well, we're going to give you a rebate of sales taxes through a 380 agreement of some sort of X amount of dollars. And if Academy says, no, that's not enough, we need this amount. And the city can come back and say, well, okay, but I need you to be able to repay me in year 15. If Academy doesn't begin to see revenues, what Academy does is they take that in their entire revenue bucket, their portfolio. So we may be receiving money from the Academy in New Braunfels. The state is trying to put a handle on that, so cities have a better litmus test of how much they're going to receive. But that's still a giant gaping hole in economic development incentives. It may be that our Academy has nothing to offer because it's already tied up. Its revenues or anything above has already been tied up somewhere else. So that's a hard question to answer, Dr. Browning. That's really a hard question to answer.
But it may be a central issue.
Absolutely.
That has to be answered some way, or that shopping center will be just, as you are mentioning, as shopping centers deteriorate, they attract businesses that don't have a lot of sales tax and don't have a lot of product to sell. Their service businesses, and that you and I are saying the same thing.
Yep, I've had a gas station who's wanted to come in. I've had a car dealership who's wanted to come in. While those are pedestrian drivers, they're not necessarily sales tax drivers. And so what we need to figure out as a community is, what is that appropriate mix? There are going to be some businesses that the foot traffic alone, we'd be absolutely ecstatic to have them, because we know the shoppers in that particular area are going to spend money. There are some businesses where that isn't the case. So that's hopefully something that, as we work through with the marketing firm and really take a look at where we are on a month-to-month basis, we definitely need to start having a really aggressive strategic plan with our shopping centers.
Has anyone talked to Apple about putting one of their Genius stores here?
No, I have not.
Well, that brings traffic of people that got money.
You know, Sylvia, I do agree with you that I don't think we've seen the bottom of this. And I think philosophic for me personally. I think we ought to keep pumping the brakes as a city because we don't know the outcome, and waiting another year or two before we're spending money just seems to make more common sense. But, council members do what they do.
Well, I want to take this
Questions?
opportunity for us as we work through a capital plan, for example. Really, I want planning and environmental. I need their help on the land use plan, on the future land use plan. And as we begin talking about what those things look like, right? Along with that is the land development code. Along with that is impervious cover and rights of way and all the other stuff that comes with it. I personally don't see us spending any money in the next 2 years. I, in good conscience, could not come to this committee and say, I need this amount of money because I don't have the whole story yet.
Good. Okay, other questions?
I have one. This report did not include hot funds.
True. Regine, Susanna?
Oh,
Did we
yeah.
get it? I think we got like $7,500 if I'm not mistaken. Regine, Susanna, can you talk to that?
I'd have to look it up, and it'd take me a few minutes to look up how much we got for hot funds, but
Regine has her hand up, but
No,
Regine, you're self-muted. No, you're not. There you go.
I believe we got $9,000. Hot funds usually isn't on this report, but we can look that up to find out what we got. I think the hotel paid $9,000 of their unpaid balance.
Okay.
Meeting every month, and we'll start looking at.
I'm sorry. I always feel like I'm the womp womp in the room, and I don't mean to be.
No, none of us have forgotten this is going on, right? And that we talked about all this. I think that you're aware of that we're not out of the woods. Who flip on the TV? You see it every day. And Dr. Browning's right. I mean, none of us know what the next 6 months is going to look like. But I agree with you that we need to watch the financials monthly, like we talked about. So. All right. Anything else? All right, let's hit our last item.
So Susanna and Wanda, I'm not sure if you guys want to take this after the discussion that you had today.
So if you scroll, I guess you have to scroll all the way to the 9:30 actuals. These are pretty old. There's some old reports in here. We haven't approved them for Q1 or Q2 and Q3. So that's one of the commitments that Susanna will go forward with. So we have a more timely approval process for these. The other thing we did today also with Susanna is that she reconciled the actual portfolio statements to our actual cash. And we were very close on what they projected to end the year with and what we actually did end the year with. And so that was very close. So that was good. But, we went ahead and looked at what's in the operating accounts and et cetera, et cetera. So that was good. So, Susanna, do you have things to add?
Susanna, I think you're self-muted. And then Councilmember Gonzalez has her hand up. Susanna got disconnected. I see her disconnected. She's trying to get back on. Do you want to take a question? Rudy's got her hand up and Melissa's got her hand up and Regine has her hand up. Regine, you're unmuted.
Go ahead, Regine. Now she's muted.
No,
All right, Melissa?
Wait,
Regine, we can hear you.
y'all can hear me now? Okay, I was just gonna say I was here if anybody had any questions. Susanna really didn't do anything on this report, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, but
Melissa? Melissa? Let's go to Rudy.
Okay, if I am looking at the right page that you are showing, Sylvia, go up 4 more pages from there.
Hi, it was just from earlier when I was saying that the council approved
If
having
you
Robert
go
Rules
to, Melissa, can you hang in there?
election of the
Hold on a
chair.
second,
That was
Melissa.
Oh, sorry.
Charles,
Michelle.
hold on a second.
okay. That's all.
Go ahead.
Okay, go up 1 more.
Sorry.
And now I'm going to double check just to make sure we're on the same page before I move off of this. Okay, let me double check. General fund text pool, the dollar amount, correct. All right, if you look over at the top left where it says period ending, that date is wrong. That needs to be 9/30/2020.
Okay, here.
Over at the very top left, third line down, portfolio
Oh,
summary, period ending 6/30, that's 9/30.
I don't think that's right, Rudy. You
no,
gotta go
it's
down.
6:30, Rudy. There's 3 reports: 3:31, 6:30, and 9:30.
I know
Go
you,
down.
no, Regine, you put this together, but follow along with me.
It's the third page from the bottom.
Follow along with me. All right, if you look on that same page that I'm there with you, if you look at the beginning date of 4/1/20, the bottom number does not match 4/1/20. It matches 6/30/20. And we're on the correct page, yes. So when you go to book value and it says beginning 4/1/2020, if you look at that dollar amount is beginning 6/30/20, not 4/1/20. Then when you jump over to the next one, that should be 9/30/20. If you look at the dollar amount, it matches up to that time period. And then same thing again, beginning under market value, that should be 6/30, and the next one should be 9/30. So there's 5 pages of each set of portfolios. So if you look down at the page number, that's page 1. See right there, you just scroll by page 1, and that's of 9/30/20. And then when you go to page 2, the same thing. Page 2 is dated wrong. It needs to be 9/30/20. Again, go back and look at the numbers on the bottom, and you'll see page 3 is correct. Page 4 is correct. Page 5 is correct. But page 1 and 2 are not correct. I verified.
I think you're right.
I know I'm right. I hate to say that, but I know I'm right.
We'll correct it.
Humble.
Alfonso, have you changed the lighting or are you blushing?
No. No.
Rudy, are you done?
I'm done. Yes.
I got live now.
Melissa, you have a live mic. You can go ahead.
Mine was from earlier when we were talking about the council stuff, and council approved Robert's Rules of Order for the election of the chairs. And I did an agenda item, and I hope that doesn't get lost because I know that sometimes when the election of the chairs get done, it would be good to have it consistent. So I hope that that gets preserved. So I'll just bring that up. Thank you.
I also was able to look up the hot fund totals if anybody wanted that.
Sure.
So the total tax that we received in FY20 was 129,300.
129,300.
Yes.
That was probably, the majority of it was probably the beginning of the year.
Last
Yes.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Before
that's about half.
Michael, I see you. It looks like you have a hot mic, but you're showing offline. He's texting me telling me he got kicked off. There he goes. Michael, you just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry, guys. I'm having a horrible internet connection. I don't understand, but anyway. I had a question on the period ending 6/30 on page 505.
Okay.
See where the descriptor talks about purchase 2 vehicles and vests. Okay, you with me?
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, then flip to the very last page. Keep going all the way to the bottom.
This is the bottom. This is 5 of 5. Let me go back up to.
Scroll down. You need to be in the period ending 9/30. All right, see there, purchase 2 vehicles and vests. We bought 2 vehicles and vests in 2 different quarters. I don't think the comments were updated. If you look at the comments at 6:30 and the comments at 9:30, there's replication there and the numbers change, but the same. It talks about
Okay.
banners, it talks about purchasing vehicles, and so the narrative's not updated. So I don't know which one is which. Which one, when did we buy the cars and the vests? When did we not? Anyway.
They talked about earlier, Susanna, they talked about purchasing the cars in October. Is
We
that
bought
correct?
the cars, the 6/30 quarter is where the cars are. The narrative on the 9/30 is not right. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what happened because on my original reports, I don't know, but the narrative on this one dated 9/30.
Can we pull these and then get them all updated and bring them back to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think this is what happened. So we have this in a shared folder, and I'm not quite sure if I moved over the shared folder into the accounting folder, or whatever. But I'd like to request that too because I'm not quite sure what if the right folder got moved over.
Okay,
Rachel?
let's hold off taking any action.
Regine?
Yeah.
The council approved the purchase of 2 vehicles on October 29th, 2019. And then the vehicles were ordered and all the outfitting of them was done in around March of 2020 is when they were in service. So everything had to be done before 6/30, 2020.
Well, it depends when, this is the cash flow, not the actual expense. So it depends when it left the bank. So let's say they paid for it March 20th, like you said, the check might have not been cut until later.
3 months later?
This is, no, the 6/30 is where the cars for 6/30, that's for April, May, and June. So if the cars were received in March, I believe it's a 30-day payment, so the actual money wouldn't have come out until April.
Till April, okay.
So I think, but I still want to look at that. I need to compare the in my accounting folder to what got transferred over to the budget meeting. And
Okay, so unless there's any objection by the committee, we'll just pull this item until it's all checked over and brought back properly. We're good?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, we only need the last quarter because you've already seen out of the 3 quarters,
Yeah.
the last quarter is the most updated. So you just need the last quarter.
Yeah. Let's just go.
yeah, if y'all want, I'd rather. I mean, I know March is all right, but I just don't. With it being weird with the dates, that's a little weird to me. And I'm sure it's probably a typo, but I just want to be sure.
All right. All right. Our last item, discuss future meeting dates and topics. One of the other things, Sylvia, I think we talked about too last year was beginning to think about what next year's budget calendar looks like. And maybe working with the department heads. Remember, we kind of revamped that last year in terms of when the department heads had their budgets completely and put together for us. And the COVID thing kind of derailed some of that. But if you guys want to flesh something out in the next month or two for us to get posted for the public.
Sorry, I was talking and I was muted. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right.
So the next meeting date, did I miss? That's Thanksgiving week. If we do it that way, or did we want to do one in 2 weeks for like? I know that the budget, but
We don't do it Thanksgiving week. Well, 2 weeks would be the 12th. Right?
Right, the 12th or the 19th.
Well, I would say the 12th because council retreat will hopefully be happening the week of the election, the 19th.
So the only thing about doing it that early is the reports that we have will I mean, like I'm not sure how much outstanding stuff that will be from October we haven't received yet. But if we might need to talk about that, about like I would say the lawyer bills, because the lawyer bills don't usually come in until the end of the month. So the October lawyer bills won't be in that report. That will be okay if we continue that way for the next month, because you'll always be a month behind.
The only thing we're doing in 2 weeks is the training.
No, I'll talk to the attorneys to get us a bill. I mean, they're keeping track of their billable hours. It should be a simple request, and if they're not, then that's a whole other issue.
Well, I just use them as an example. I mean, yeah. It like the credit card bills, they don't come, and we don't pay for those until I believe the 7th of November, things like that. I'm just saying, if there are anything, that's just something to think about.
True, because it might look like it's doubled up the following month.
That'll be a test run on the report anyway. It'll be a good starting point.
How about early December?
This
is John. How about early December?
We could do December 3rd.
Driving, open go. Who's driving the screen? Ray Jane, this is a good time to talk about your retirement plan.
My retirement plan?
Because it's early December, is it not?
No, December 31st.
Yeah, but you got time to burn.
Well, I'm taking that the week of Thanksgiving and the week after.
Oh.
No, I'll be around for that.
Okay. Susanna, have you taken control of the You don't have control, do you?
Not
Okay.
me.
Yeah, your hand is raised.
Not
Okay,
me.
go ahead. Go ahead. Susanna, you had
Okay,
your
so
hand raised?
No, it must have been from earlier.
Okay.
I mean, we could do November 12th and let's see how many things are still outstanding. Being the new year and we're really not spending that much money, it might not be anything, and then we'd be that much further ahead. And if it's really bad on November 12th, we can say these are the preliminary ones and go from there. I think it would give us a good head start on the new reporting.
I'm okay with that.
we need to move on.
Yep, we're good with the 12th, if that's what the committee would like to do.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn.
6 o'clock?
Thank you, John. So yeah, 6 o'clock. Is there a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
All right. All in favor, say good night.
Good night, all.
Night, everyone.
Night, all.
Thanks.
Bye,
Good
everyone.
night, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all. And we'll commit to have that site map on where to go by that meeting as well, so.
The side map.
Well, he wanted the links on where to go find things.
Excellent, good.
Mhm. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.